As we all know, discussions around data privacy and AI can be quite polarizing. Even more so, discussions around AI. And in the next 20 minutes, I'd like to build a bridge exactly between these two topics. In particular, I'm going to share Microsoft's responsible AI journey and how we are addressing data privacy and security as part of these principles in the age of AI. And discussions around data privacy and AI can not only be polarizing, as mentioned, but also complex. And what also always reminds me of one of the theses of our Microsoft chief data scientist, who claims that we human beings are almost addicted to complexity because we love complex problems and complex projects. And his evidence for this addiction is that we actually sent the first human beings to the moon before we put wheels on suitcases, which, according to our Microsoft Copilot, is actually true. While the American astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were busy collecting moon material from the lunar surface in 1969, travelers at home were still struggling with heavy luggage in their arms in the streets of Manhattan and elsewhere. The concept on luggage on wheels only came about in 1970 when the first rolling suitcase was introduced. And now, in the age of AI, the power that each of us has in our smartphones far exceeds the computing power that enabled the first moon landing. With AI and the data that is literally in our hands, we are supposedly equipped perfectly to solve the complex problems we are supposedly so addicted to. And it goes without saying that these powerful tools, especially AI, need to be developed, deployed, and used responsibly. And this is exactly our commitment at Microsoft, to build AI systems that are safe, secure, and trustworthy by design. We are reminded every day that people, no matter what part of the world they come from or what area of expertise they have, do not use technology they do not trust. And I'm going to shed some light on the question what this means in the context of AI and data protection. The foundation for this is Microsoft's responsible AI framework, where I'm going to shed some further light on. However, already more than 20 years ago, Bill Gates, our then CEO of Microsoft, recognized the importance of technology's trustworthiness for its users as a core challenge, when he said that computers play an increasingly important and useful role in our lives. At the same time, many of the people he was talking to are concerned about the security of the technologies they depend on. And in 2016, our current CEO, Satya Nadella, put this discussion in the context of AI. In the article shown here, he aptly summed up the aspect of control in relation to AI by quoting John Markov, who wrote, "The best way to answer the hard questions about control in a world full of smart machines is by understanding the values of those who are actually building these systems." And this is nothing less than the basis of responsible AI, which obviously goes back to the roots of responsibility as a cardinal concept of law. As the lawyers among you may know, to determine whether someone can be held accountable in a legal sense, a control is a key aspect. And as you can see, this statement or this acknowledgement in 2016 marked the start of our responsible AI journey at Microsoft. AI innovation and innovation in responsible AI is something that our company has been doing for almost 10 years. The first AI principles adopted in 2018 already and updated in 2022. And as you can also see on the side, a lot more happened even since 2022. For example, the implementation of our customer copyright commitments, the publication of our first responsible AI transparency report, and the EU AI Act documentation, which is available on our Microsoft Trust Center. And it's evident that building trustworthy AI cannot be done without an effective governance in place. And we believe that such AI governance starts at home. Since adopting the aforementioned principles in 2018, we've been on the journey to uphold these principles in how to build and deploy AI responsibly. It means the framework for building AI systems according to the 6 principles you're seeing here, meaning fairness, reliability and safety, privacy and security, inclusiveness, transparency and accountability. And these 6 principles are broken down into 17 sub-goals, and each of these goals has a set of requirements that defines the procedural steps internally that must be taken and mapped to the tools and practices available to us. However, for the purpose of today's session, I'm focusing on the aspect of privacy and security as one of the key principles and paradigms we are pursuing in our responsible AI framework. And this principle is built upon the standards we already have at place at Microsoft. The intention clearly is to build on existing standards rather than duplicating efforts in the area of responsible AI. And a key prerequisite, therefore, is that AI is built on the cloud, obviously, what means that the key data protection requirements generally applicable to our cloud services also apply to our AI products running on the Microsoft cloud. And therefore, we are strongly supporting data privacy and security commitments, especially when delivering Azure OpenAI services and Copilot products. These commitments are defined in the contract signed by Microsoft, composed of the data protection addendum, the product terms, and also the Microsoft privacy statement when Microsoft acts as a data processor. These terms apply to prompts or responses or data generated through AI interactions. In a nutshell, the overview you are seeing says your data are private. Your data are only available to third parties involved into the delivery of the service with appropriate access. We don't share your data to third parties or sell them, and your data is under your control. And all data, whether used for fine-tuning of AI models or generated through, for example, Copilot or Azure, remains in your control. And if you fine-tune models with your data, those models are accessible only to your organization and the data stored within your Azure subscription. And your data, specifically relevant for the purpose of our today's discussion, is obviously never used to train or improve foundation models. It is solely for your organization's needs and will remain within your tenant, ensuring full compliance with the privacy standards applicable. And the foundation to all of that is that Microsoft commits to comply with all laws that apply to its business, present or future, while maintaining full transparency in the approach I'm just describing. And since it is so important and the question regularly comes up, I'm double-clicking exactly on one aspect I already mentioned regarding the question, do we use customer data for training of large language models? The answer is no. It is obviously not used, as already mentioned, but wanted to fully emphasize exactly that aspect. And as you as privacy professionals know, the underlying principle is the principle of purpose limitation. That says that Microsoft does not use customer data for its own purposes, according to the very prominent question we are regularly asked. We are only using customer data to provide the products and services and for business operations incident to providing such products and services. And since this is still heavily debated or questioned, I'm putting some further light on it to confirm that no personal data is used for the business operation purposes, and within the scope of our services, at no point we are reserving the right to use the data uploaded for our own purposes, or we are not conducting any other operations except those contractually agreed. You can see on the picture on the right-hand side the intensity of personal data reference, meaning that the uploaded and processed content before its deletion is personal data that remains in the customer, fully under customer's control, and the data used for business operations is actually aggregated and irreversibly aggregated data, meaning cannot be longer considered personal data at all. Or put differently, or in a more simplistic manner, the data used for processing for own business operations means simply the creation of non-personal data in the sense of irreversibly aggregated data for business operations in the manner spelled out explicitly here, and what is typical for such type of business operations, meaning billing and account management, financial reporting, or other reporting and business modeling. What are purposes or operations that are typical and inherent purposes for any other data processor as well? And even having said that we are talking about non-personal data, the legal basis, if you still may want to require such in a very careful approach, the legal basis for the processor would be still Article 28 plus the instruction and authorization, and the legal basis for the controller would be Article 6.1e or Article 6.1f of the GDPR. I trust this brought some clarity on the privacy fundamentals that remain relevant also in the age of AI. And as I tried to convey, trust in the compliance of technical solutions is based on transparency, and we are fully aware that our business is based on the trust we enjoy from the customers and users, as well as from the countries and governments across Europe. Therefore, Microsoft emphasizes to respect the European values, to comply with European laws, and actively defends Europe's cyber security, which is the basis of a set of dedicated European digital commitments we committed earlier this year by the end of April in a time of geopolitical volatility to ensure the digital stability. And in detail, these principles also specifically emphasize the aspect of data privacy, as you can see as a third commitment among the 5 commitments laid out in here. However, starting or emphasizing also the first one, while building out a broad AI and cloud ecosystem across Europe, means that we are increasing our data center capacity by 40% over the next 2 years and expand the operations in 16 countries, is a measure that indirectly fuels data privacy and data protection, because these data centers are not built on wheels, and it is in our very core interest to exactly be able to monetize these investments by maintaining compliance to data privacy standards and to protecting the privacy of European data. You can find all of the contents I just shared in the resources in the slide deck that will be shared by Bitkom, specifically calling also out the M365 kit that has been recently developed and provides further support for the users of the M365 products. And the very charming aspect is that we were able to develop this kit and the principles behind it in collaboration with the data protection authorities, namely Bavaria and Hesse, and we are very glad that this can help our users. And further details on the European digital commitments, as briefly touched at the very end, can also be found as accompanying material in the resources. And with that, thank you for your attention.